The fabric ripped, not from behind but from in front, from her own mother's hands. Laura didn't even have time to gasp before the sound of tearing silk filled the grand ceremony hall, echoing off marble columns and vaulted ceilings. Cold air hit her bare shoulder, then her collarbone, then the exposed skin of her chest. She stumbled backward, catching herself against nothing as hundreds of eyes turned toward her. Not laughter this time. Shocked silence. Worse than laughter. So much worse. "Morgana, what?" someone began. "An accident," her mother said, voice smooth as poisoned honey. Lady Morgana Ashenhurst stood before her daughter in emerald silk and golden jewelry, her dark hair swept into an elegant twist. Her manicured nails, just seconds ago transformed into claws, now perfectly human again. The fabric was so fragile. "Poor quality, I'm afraid. Laura, darling, you should have told me your gown was defective." Laura's hands shook as she clutched the remnants of her dress to her chest. The crimson gown, the one her grandmother's seamstress had made years ago, the one that still smelled faintly of lavender and old memories, now hung in tatters. The bodice gaped open. The skirt had split from waist to hem, revealing the simple underdress beneath. She couldn't stand here like this. She couldn't breathe. The Luna selection ceremony had just begun. Every unmated she-wolf of noble blood had been summoned to the Nightshade Palace for tonight's ritual, the night when Alpha King Theron Nightshade would choose his mate from among the gathered females. The ceremony Laura had dreaded for weeks. The ceremony her mother had insisted she attend, despite Laura's protests that she didn't belong here. "Mother," she whispered, hating how broken her voice sounded. "Why?" "Hush now." Morgana's hand, human again, gentle again, touched Laura's cheek. The assembled nobles would see only a concerned mother. Only Laura could see the cold calculation in her eyes. "You're making a scene. Perhaps you should retire. Claim illness. No one will question it." Behind their mother, Celestine stood frozen in gold silk, her younger sister's face pale with shock. Celestine, the perfect daughter. Celestine, who could shift into a beautiful golden wolf. Celestine, who their mother had been grooming for this moment since she was 14. "Lady Morgana," a voice cut through the whispers, deep, authoritative. "Lady Laura." The crowd parted like water. Laura looked up, still clutching her destroyed dress, and felt the world tilt sideways. Alpha King Theron Nightshade moved through the assembled nobles with predatory grace. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in black leather and armor that seemed to absorb the candlelight. Dark hair, sharp features, a circlet of silver resting against his brow. His eyes, not brown, not gold, but molten amber, like a wolf's eyes caught in firelight, were fixed on her with an intensity that stole what remained of her breath. Behind him stood another woman, striking, powerful, wearing leather armor and a crimson cloak. Her dark eyes took in the scene with sharp intelligence, one hand resting on the dagger at her hip. Every instinct in Laura's body screamed, "Run!" but her feet wouldn't move. Those amber eyes dropped to the torn fabric in her hands. Something dangerous flickered across the Alpha King's face. Then his jaw tightened, and he turned his gaze to Morgana. "If you've ever felt like you weren't enough, like someone made you believe you were broken, you're in the right place. Hit subscribe and join a community that stands against manipulation and gaslighting. Comment below where you're watching from, and let's stand together against people like Morgana." Now, back to Laura's story. Chapter 1. "An accident, you said?" Theron's voice was soft. Dangerously soft. The kind of quiet that made the assembled nobles take an involuntary step back. Morgana's smile never wavered. "Your Majesty, My daughter is simply clumsy. The gown was old, fragile. Your own mother? Theron's amber eyes were still fixed on Laura, and there was something in his voice she couldn't name. Disbelief, maybe horror. Your own mother did this to you? Laura's throat closed. She couldn't answer. Couldn't think past the humiliation burning through her veins and the hundreds of eyes boring into her exposed skin. Without another word, Theron reached up and unfastened the cloak from his shoulders. It was magnificent. Heavy midnight blue, so dark it was almost black, lined with fur that looked silver in the candlelight. The nightshade crest, a wolf's head rendered in intricate silver embroidery, gleamed over the heart. The royal seal. Everyone in the hall would recognize it. He stepped closer, and Laura's breath caught as he draped the cloak around her shoulders. It swallowed her completely, falling past her knees, the weight of it grounding. It smelled of night forests and winter rain, and something wild underneath that made her wolf, the wolf she shouldn't have, the wolf that had never awakened, stir for the first time in her life. His hands lingered on her shoulders for just a heartbeat. Through the heavy fabric she felt heat, saw his jaw tighten, watched something like recognition flicker through those impossible amber eyes. Then he stepped back and turned to face the crowd. The ceremony is concluded. The hall erupted. Voices rose in confusion and protest. Female nobles surged forward, their carefully prepared presentations forgotten. The Luna selection hadn't even begun. How could it be concluded? Your Majesty, Morgana started. Silence. One word. Alpha command rippled through the hall like a physical force, and every wolf in the room, except Laura, felt it in their bones. Morgana's mouth snapped shut, her eyes widening in shock. The woman in crimson armor moved to Theron's side, her hand still resting on her dagger. Everyone out, she commanded, her voice carrying easily across the chaos. Now. The nobles began moving toward the exits, some reluctant, others whispering furiously, all of them stealing glances at Laura wrapped in the Alpha King's cloak like some kind of claim. Laura's eyes found Celestine in the crowd. Her sister stood frozen, face pale with shock, golden dress suddenly seeming garish in the candlelight. Their gazes locked for one brief moment. Celestine's expression wasn't jealous. It was stricken, afraid. She didn't know, Laura realized with sudden clarity. Whatever Morgana had planned, Celestine hadn't been part of this particular cruelty. Then Morgana stepped between them, breaking the connection. When Laura looked again, Celestine was being swept toward the doors with the other nobles. Their mother's face, though, that Laura saw clearly. Not regret, not shame, just cold calculation, her mind already working on the next move. Within minutes, the ceremony hall emptied. The massive doors closed with a resonant boom, leaving only Laura, Theron, and the woman in armor in the vast, candle-lit space. Theron's hand settled at the small of Laura's back, light, careful, but burning like a brand even through the heavy cloak. Come, he said quietly. We need to talk, somewhere private. He guided her through a side entrance Laura hadn't noticed, down corridors she'd never seen, away from the ceremony hall and prying eyes. The woman in armor followed at a discreet distance, a silent guardian. They entered a study, all dark wood and leather-bound books, a fire crackling in an enormous hearth, intimate, safe. So far from the chaos of the ceremony hall, it felt like a different world. Theron closed the door, turned to face her. His amber eyes found hers, and something in his expression made her chest tighten. Tell me everything, he said. Start from the beginning. Chapter 2. Laura told him everything. The summons 3 weeks ago, her mother's strange insistence that she attend despite Laura's protests, the years of feeling weak, unable to shift while other noble children discovered their wolves at 14, 15. The shame, the isolation. Theron listened in silence, his expression growing darker with each word. "And you've never shifted?" he asked quietly. "Not even once?" "I thought I was broken," Laura's voice cracked. "Human blood," my mother said. "My grandmother married a human merchant. The taint runs through me." Something dangerous flashed through Theron's eyes. "Come with me." He led her deeper into the palace, through corridors that grew older, more ancient. The woman in armor, Commander Lyris he'd called her, remained in the study, standing guard. They descended stone steps into what felt like the heart of the palace itself. When they stopped, Laura gasped. A circular chamber opened before them, dominated by a massive stone in the center. It glowed with faint silver light, carved with runes that seemed to move in the flickering torchlight. The lunar stone, the heart of pack magic. "Touch it," Theron said. I'm not." "Please." His hand found hers, warm and steady. "Trust me." Laura stepped forward, reached out. Her fingertips brushed the cool marble surface. The reaction was immediate and violent. Light exploded from the stone, but not the pure silver she'd seen in paintings and heard in stories. Half the light blazed silver, bright and clean. The other half burned sickly green, spreading up her arm like poison made visible. Laura screamed. Pain lanced through her veins, burning and freezing simultaneously. She tried to jerk away, but Theron held her hand against the stone, his other arm coming around her shoulders to keep her upright. "Don't fight it," he said, his voice strained. "Let it show us the truth." The green light crawled up her arm, mapping patterns beneath her skin, veins, arteries, spreading toward her heart like corruption given form. Then it faded, and Laura collapsed against Theron's chest, gasping. "Get Seraphine," Theron commanded someone Laura hadn't realized was there. "Now!" Minutes later, or maybe hours, Laura couldn't tell, a woman with silver-streaked dark hair swept into the chamber. She took one look at Laura, and her expression hardened. "Put her on the bench," Seraphine ordered, already pulling tools and vials from a leather satchel. Theron settled Laura carefully on the stone bench along the wall. The healer's hands moved over her, pressing here, examining there. She held Laura's wrist, then her throat, then pulled down her lower eyelid to study something Laura couldn't see. Finally, Seraphine stepped back. "Wolfsbane." The word fell like a stone into still water. "This didn't happen overnight," Seraphine continued, her voice tight with anger. "Someone has been dosing her since childhood, years, maybe decades. The damage is extensive." "Who?" Theron's voice was barely above a whisper, barely controlled. "Who gave you medicine? Tonics? Anything you took regularly?" Laura's mind spun, fragmented memories surfacing like bodies from dark water. A cup every morning, her mother's gentle smile. "Drink up, darling. It will help with your weakness." "My mother," she whispered. "Every morning. She said it was for my weakness. That I was sickly, fragile, that I needed it to stay healthy." Seraphine's expression twisted with fury. "This is wolfsbane. It suppresses shifting, damages the wolf spirit, causes the exact symptoms she told you it was treating. She made you sick, made you weak, then convinced you that you needed her to survive." The words hit Laura like physical blows. Years, her entire life. Every morning, her mother smiling as she handed Laura a cup of poison. "She knew," Laura breathed. "She always knew." Theron's hand found hers again, grounding her before she could spiral. When she looked up, his amber eyes blazed with barely restrained violence. "I'm going to heal you," he said. "Not a promise, a vow." And then we're going to find out exactly what your mother has done. Chapter 3. The purging was agony. Laura spent 2 days in palace chambers while Seraphine worked to flush decades of poison from her system. Potions that burned going down, tinctures that made her retch, herbs pressed to pulse points that felt like fire against her skin. Through it all, Theron stayed. Not in her room, that would be improper, but in the adjoining study, close enough that she could feel his presence through the door. It helped. Somehow, it helped. On the 3rd morning, Morgana demanded entry. "She's my daughter," Laura heard her mother's voice through the door, cold, imperious. "You cannot keep me from her." Theron's response was too quiet to hear. Then footsteps, the door opening. Laura pushed herself upright in bed, her body still weak, still aching. Seraphine moved to stand between Laura and the door. A silent guardian. Morgana entered like she was walking into her own drawing room, still elegant in burgundy silk, still perfectly composed. Her dark eyes swept over Laura's pale face, the medicinal supplies scattered across the table, and registered nothing. No concern, no guilt. "Mother," Laura whispered, hating that some desperate part of her still wanted an explanation, still wanted this to be a misunderstanding. "Laura," Morgana's voice was cool, "this theatricality is unnecessary. You're making quite the spectacle." "Theatricality?" Theron's voice came from the doorway, deadly soft. "Your daughter has been poisoned for 20 years. Medicated," Morgana corrected. "For her own good." The words hit Laura like a slap. No denial, no shock, just casual correction. "Why?" The question tore from Laura's throat. "Why would you do this? I'm your daughter." Morgana's expression finally shifted, not to remorse, but to something colder. Calculation. "You're a mistake," she said simply. "Your grandmother was human. That taint runs through your veins like a disease. Celestine is pure. She deserves to be Luna." The room went silent. "You knew," Theron said slowly. "You knew Laura was my fated mate." Morgana's chin lifted. "For 15 years. Since the Moon Oracle visited House Ashenhurst and the truth was revealed. She told me my eldest daughter would be Luna Queen. But she also told me what that would cost. Our family name dragged through mud, associated with half-blood weakness. The Purists approached me shortly after. They offered a solution." "A solution," Laura breathed. "You poisoned me." "I protected our family," Morgana snapped. "The Purists promised to restore House Ashenhurst's former glory if I delivered them a pure Luna. Celestine deserves that throne. She's strong, powerful, everything a Luna should be, everything you're not." Laura felt something inside her crack. Not break. That had already happened. This was the sound of the pieces shattering into dust. "You made me believe I was broken," she whispered. "My entire life, you made me think I was weak, defective, less than—" "You are less than," Morgana interrupted. "Human blood makes you weak. I did what any mother would do. I chose the daughter worthy of greatness." Theron moved so fast, Laura barely saw it. One moment he was at the door. The next he had Morgana by the throat, lifted off her feet, his eyes blazing amber bright, with barely controlled wolf. "You poisoned your own child," he snarled. "You tortured her for 15 years. You destroyed her wolf, her identity, her life. For politics?" Morgana's composure finally cracked, fear flashing through her eyes. "The Purists! They'll come for her anyway. Better she never knew what she lost." "Get out!" Theron's alpha command cracked through the room like thunder. He released Morgana, letting her stumble backward. "Get out of my palace, out of my territory. If I see you again, I will forget you're Laura's mother." Morgana straightened her gown with shaking hands. Her eyes found Laura one last time. No apology, no regret, just cold dismissal. "You'll never be worthy of that crown," she said. Then she swept from the room. Laura sat frozen in bed, hollowed out. Theron crossed to her immediately, his hand finding hers. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I should have stopped her sooner." "No." Laura's voice sounded far away. "I needed to hear it. I needed to know." That her mother had never loved her, had never seen her as anything but an obstacle to remove. The truth hurt worse than any poison. Chapter 4. The memories came back in fragments, sharp as broken glass. Laura woke on the fourth night screaming. Not from pain, though her body still ached from the purging, but from the images flooding her mind, memories that had been buried, suppressed, twisted by years of poison. Theron burst through the door, Seraphine close behind. "The wolfsbane," the healer said quietly, moving to Laura's bedside. "It doesn't just poison the body. It fractures memories, suppresses them. As we purge it, they're returning." Laura clutched the sheets, tears streaming down her face. "I remember. I almost shifted. I was 8 years old and I almost..." The memory played behind her eyes like a nightmare. Young Laura in the garden, feeling something wild stirring under her skin for the first time. Power, strength, her bones beginning to shift. Then her mother's hands on her shoulders shaking her hard. Morgana's face twisted with horror. "No, no, you can't. Laura, stop it. Stop it right now." The cup of bitter tea afterward. The first dose. Laura too young to understand what was happening, only that her mother looked afraid, and that meant Laura had done something terrible. "She was horrified," Laura whispered to the present. "When my wolf tried to come, she was horrified." More memories surfaced through the night. Age 12, watching other noble children shift for the first time at their ceremonies. Laura asking her mother quietly, privately, "Mama, why doesn't my wolf come?" Morgana's smile, patient, indulgent, laced with poison Laura couldn't recognize then. "Some of us aren't meant to be strong, darling. It's not your fault. You simply don't have the gift." The tonic every morning after that. Increased dosage. "For your health, Laura. To keep you from getting sicker." Age 14, Celestine's first shift. Laura remembered standing in the corner of the great hall, watching her younger sister transform into a beautiful golden wolf. Remembered Morgana's pride, so bright it was blinding, her mother embracing Celestine afterward, tears of joy streaming down her face. "My perfect daughter," Morgana had whispered, just loud enough for Laura to hear. "Everything a wolf should be." Laura had gone to her room and cried. Had taken an extra dose of the tonic because her mother said it would help with the sadness. Age 16, standing outside her mother's study, hearing Morgana speak to someone Laura couldn't see. "The damaged one is becoming a liability. People are asking questions. Perhaps we should send her away." "No." The other voice, male, older. "Keep her close. Keep her medicated. When the time comes, Celestine will need a foil. Something to be compared against, favorably." Laura had walked away, believing she'd misheard, believing her mother couldn't. "She made me believe I was broken," Laura sobbed in the present, Seraphine's hands gentle on her shoulders. "My entire childhood, every time I felt weak, every time I couldn't do what other wolves could, she made me think it was my fault. That I was defective. You were never broken," Theron said fiercely. He'd moved to sit beside her bed, his hand finding hers in the darkness. "She broke you, intentionally, systematically, for 15 years. Laura looked at him through tears. How do I know who I really am? If everything I remember is poisoned, every moment of weakness, every failure, was any of it real? Or was it all just the wolfsbane working? You're real, Theron said, his amber eyes blazing with certainty. Your strength is real. The fact that you survived 15 years of systematic poisoning and didn't break completely? That's real. Your mother tried to destroy you and you're still here, still fighting. Seraphine squeezed Laura's shoulder. The memories will keep coming. It will be painful, but it's also healing. You're reclaiming yourself. Laura nodded, wiping tears from her face. More memories waited in the darkness, years of lies, manipulation, carefully constructed helplessness. But underneath the poison, underneath the false narrative her mother had built, something else was stirring. Her wolf. Damaged, yes, suppressed for 20 years, but not dead, not destroyed, waiting. Tell me what happens next, Laura said quietly. When my wolf wakes. Theron's hand tightened around hers. Then you become everything your mother feared. Laura's about to face her first real test, and trust me, Morgana isn't done yet. If you want to see how this poisoned wolf finally fights back, you need to hit that like button right now. And if you think people like Morgana, manipulators who gaslight their own children, deserve to be exposed, drop a comment saying, I stand with Laura. The assassins are coming. Let's keep going. Chapter 5. Celestine came at dawn on the 7th day. Laura heard the quiet argument outside her door. Commander Lyris's firm refusal, then Theron's low voice overriding it. The door opened, and her sister stepped inside. Celestine looked different, smaller somehow, though she wore the same elegant clothes, the same perfect composure. But her eyes held guilt and fear in equal measure. I'll be right outside, Theron said quietly, his gaze holding Laura's, making sure she wanted this. Laura nodded, and he withdrew, leaving the sisters alone for the first time since the ceremony. Silence stretched between them. Did you know? Laura asked finally, the question she'd been turning over in her mind for days. Not about the poison. Celestine's voice was barely above a whisper. I swear to you, Laura, not about that. But? Celestine flinched. But I knew she preferred me. I knew she treated you differently. I told myself you were just different, weaker, that it wasn't anyone's fault. She looked away. I didn't ask questions because I didn't want answers. Laura felt anger flare hot in her chest. You benefited from my weakness. Yes. No denial, no excuse. Every time Mother praised my strength, it was because you appeared fragile. Every time the nobles complimented my wolf, it was against the backdrop of you having none. I was the perfect daughter because you were the broken one. I wasn't broken, Laura said fiercely. She broke me. I know. Tears slipped down Celestine's face. I know that now. And I hate that I didn't see it, didn't want to see it. Laura studied her sister's face, really looked at her for the first time in years, saw the exhaustion beneath the beauty, the strain behind the perfection. The Purists, Laura said. When did they approach you? Celestine's breath caught. 2 years ago. They promised that if I became Luna, our house would be powerful again, that the Ashenhurst name would be restored to glory. She met Laura's eyes. Mother said it was my destiny, that I was born for this. I believed her. Did you want it? Laura asked. Really want it? Or did you just want her approval? The question hung in the air. Celestine was silent for a long moment. I wanted Mother's love, she finally whispered. I thought if I was perfect enough, strong enough, beautiful enough, Powerful enough she'd finally be satisfied, finally be proud. A bitter laugh. But she's never satisfied, is she? Even when I did everything right, it wasn't enough. She always wanted more. Laura recognized the truth in those words, recognized herself in her sister's desperation. Morgana had poisoned them both, just in different ways. She used us, Laura said quietly. Both of us. Turned us against each other so we'd never realize we were both her victims. Celestine nodded, tears falling freely now. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Laura. I should have questioned, should have protected you instead of competing with you. You were a child too, Laura said, and found she meant it. She's our mother. We were supposed to be able to trust her. Celestine moved closer, hesitant. The Purists are planning something. I don't know what. But Mother's been meeting with them in secret. They're angry about the ceremony being dismissed. About you being here under the Alpha King's protection. Laura's spine straightened. Tell me everything. I will. But first... Celestine's voice broke. Can you forgive me? For not seeing? For not helping? Laura looked at her sister, really looked. Saw not a rival, but another girl trapped in Morgana's web. Another daughter desperate for love that would never come. Yes, Laura said. If you help me stop her. Celestine's relief was palpable. Anything. Tell me what you need. Everything you know about the Purists. Every meeting, every name, every plan. Laura's voice hardened. And then we end this. Together. For the first time in their lives, the sisters stood on the same side. Chapter 6. The attack came during the evening court session, swift and brutal. Laura had been standing beside Theron's throne, a position that had raised eyebrows among the assembled nobles, but one he'd insisted upon. You're under my protection, he'd said. Let them see it. She'd felt uneasy all evening. Something in the air, a tension she couldn't name. Her newly awakening senses picking up threats her conscious mind couldn't identify. Then a noble moved too fast. Dagger gleaming in the candlelight. Laura saw it coming, saw the blade arcing toward her throat, and something inside her roared. Claws burst from her fingertips. Canines extended with a sickening crack. Her eyes blazed gold, and for one perfect moment, she felt her wolf surge to the surface. Then pain exploded through her body. The dagger had been coated in wolfsbane, fresh poison meeting the damaged remains of 20 years' worth. Her partial shift collapsed, bones grinding back into human form too quickly, too violently. She screamed. Chaos erupted. 3 more nobles moved, revealing themselves as conspirators. But Theron was already moving. His shift was instantaneous and devastating. One moment a man, the next a massive black wolf, larger than any Laura had seen, with eyes that burned like molten gold. He tore into the first attacker before the man could even raise his blade. Commander Lyris and the palace guards engaged the others. Steel rang against steel. Blood splattered across marble floors. Laura collapsed, clutching her chest where her wolf thrashed in agony. She'd been so close to fully shifting, to feeling complete for the first time in her life. Then the poison had ripped it away again. The fight lasted minutes. When it ended, 2 assassins lay dead, one captured and bleeding. Theron shifted back to human form, his chest heaving, blood, not his own, staining his hands. He was beside Laura immediately. Are you hurt? Did they... I almost shifted, Laura gasped. I felt her. My wolf. She was there, and then... The blade was poisoned, Seraphine said, appearing with her medical kit. She examined the shallow cut on Laura's arm where the dagger had grazed her. More wolfsbane, enough to incapacitate, not kill. They wanted her weakened. Theron's expression turned murderous. He rose and crossed to where Commander Lyris held the captured assassin, a minor noble Laura vaguely recognized from House Ravenmore. "Who sent you?" Theron's voice was deadly calm. The man spat blood. "The defective daughter must be removed," Lady Morgana said. "Say that again." Theron's hand closed around the man's throat. "Slowly." "Lady Morgana Ashenhurst," the assassin choked out. "She paid us. Said the half-blood had to die before the mate bond could form, that once you claimed her officially, it would be too late. The pure daughter, Celestine, she's meant to be Luna, not that tainted." Theron slammed him against the wall. "Where is Morgana now?" "The Ashenhurst estate. Planning, waiting." The man's lips twisted into a cruel smile. "You can't protect her forever, Your Majesty. The Purists won't stop. A Luna with human blood will destroy everything our ancestors built." "Take him to the dungeons," Theron ordered. "I want every name, every house involved, every detail of their plans." Commander Lyris dragged the assassin away. The throne room began to empty, nobles whispering frantically as guards escorted them out. Theron returned to Laura kneeling beside where she sat on the floor, still trembling from the aborted shift. "I will end this," he said quietly. "Your mother, the Purists, all of it. She's still my mother," Laura whispered, hating that some part of her still cared, still wanted to believe this was somehow a mistake. "She stopped being your mother the first time she poisoned you," Theron said, his voice gentle but firm. "She's ordered your death, Laura. She won't stop until you're gone." Laura looked down at her hands. Her claws had retracted, leaving her fingertips bloody. Evidence that her wolf existed, that she wasn't broken or defective or any of the things Morgana had made her believe. "My wolf is damaged," she said. "The shift, it hurt, felt wrong." "Because she's been caged for 20 years, Seraphine interjected. "She's fighting through decades of poison. But she's there, Laura. She's real. And with time, with healing, you will shift." Laura nodded, something hardening in her chest. "Then let's heal faster, because I'm done running." Chapter 7. Seraphine burst into the study at midnight. Ancient texts clutched to her chest, her face pale with horror. "I know what Morgana is planning," she said without preamble, "and it's worse than we thought." Theron looked up from the maps he'd been studying, every Purist estate marked, every known safe house circled. Laura sat beside him, still recovering from the assassination attempt, her arm bandaged where the poisoned blade had cut her. "Tell us," Theron commanded. Seraphine spread the texts across the table. Dark magic, forbidden spells, rituals that had been outlawed for centuries. The blood moon rises in 3 days. Morgana plans to perform a transference ritual. "Transference of what?" Laura asked, though dread already coiled in her stomach. "Everything." Seraphine's finger traced the ancient script. "Your blood, your wolf, your fated mate bond. She'll sever it all from you and transfer it to Celestine." The room went silent. "That's impossible," Theron said. "Mate bonds can't be transferred. They're written by fate itself." "Not transferred naturally, no, but there are dark magics that can rip them away, if the original mate dies during the ritual. Laura's death would sever the bond at its source, and the spell would redirect it to the new vessel." Seraphine looked at Laura with devastated eyes. "Celestine would become your replacement in every way. The bond would recognize her as if she'd always been Theron's fated mate." Laura felt cold. Her mother wasn't just trying to kill her, she was trying to erase her completely. 3 days, Theron said flatly. "We have 3 days to stop this." "Or we don't stop it," Laura said quietly. "We use it." Everyone turned to stare at her. If Morgana is gathering the Purists for this ritual, That means they'll all be in one place. Every conspirator, every noble who wants me dead. Laura's voice strengthened. We don't just stop the ritual, we end the Purists entirely. It's too dangerous, Theron said. If something goes wrong, if they manage to complete even part of the spell, then we make sure they can't. Laura stood, despite her body's protests. We complete our mate bond now, tonight. If the bond is fully formed, it will be harder to sever, maybe impossible. Seraphine's expression shifted to understanding. A completed mate bond is stronger than any magic. It could protect you from the ritual entirely. But your wolf, Theron said, his gaze intense on Laura's face. You can barely shift. The bond requires— I know what it requires. Laura's hands trembled, but her voice didn't. Blood exchange, marking, consummation of the bond. She swallowed hard. I can barely shift. My wolf is so damaged. What if I can't complete the bond properly? What if I fail? Theron crossed to her in 2 strides, his hands framing her face. You won't fail. Your wolf is damaged, yes, but she's there. I felt her during the attack. She fought through 20 years of poison to protect you. That's not weakness, Laura. That's the strongest wolf I've ever encountered. But if something goes wrong, then we face it together. His amber eyes blazed with certainty. But we're running out of time. We complete the bond now, while we can, or we risk Morgana succeeding. The door opened. Celestine slipped inside, her face drawn with exhaustion. I have the location, she said without preamble. The old Ashenhurst Chapel, 3 miles north of the estate. Mothers gathered 24 Purist nobles. They're preparing the ritual circle now. She looked at Laura. She has something of yours, a lock of hair from when you were a child. She says it will make the transference cleaner. Laura felt sick. Her mother had been planning this for years, keeping pieces of her daughter like ingredients for a spell. 3 days, Celestine continued, but the preparations are already underway. If you're going to stop this, you need to move soon. Theron's jaw tightened. We'll need forces, strategy. We can't just storm in. Then we plan, Laura said, her voice hardening with determination. We have 3 days to prepare, 3 days to complete the bond, gather forces, and end this conspiracy once and for all. She looked at Theron, then at Seraphine, then at her sister. My mother wants to erase me, to take everything I am and give it to someone else. Laura's hands clenched into fists. I'm done letting her control my life. We don't just survive this, we win. Chapter 8. They performed the ritual in Theron's private sanctuary, beneath the lunar stone that had first revealed Laura's poisoning. Seraphine prepared the space with herbs and candles, ancient symbols drawn in silver dust across the floor. Celestine stood guard at the door, ensuring no interruptions. This was too important, too dangerous to risk interference. Laura stood before Theron in the center of the circle, her heart hammering against her ribs. Are you certain? He asked quietly. Once we begin, there's no going back. I'm certain, Laura said, and meant it. Theron drew a ceremonial blade from his belt, silver, etched with runes. He cut his palm first, blood welling dark in the candlelight. Then he offered the blade to Laura. She took it with steady hands and mirrored his action. The sting of the cut was nothing compared to what was coming. They pressed their palms together. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Power slammed through Laura like a physical force. Theron's strength, his memories, his very essence pouring through the blood bond. She gasped, knees buckling, but his free arm caught her waist, holding her upright. I've got you, he murmured against her temple. Let it flow. And then, deeper than Theron's power, deeper than the blood magic, Something else stirred. Laura's wolf. She'd been waiting. Trapped for 20 years behind walls of poison and suppression, and now those walls were crumbling. She rose with a fury that stole Laura's breath. "Sister!" a voice snarled in her mind. "Finally! Let me out!" The shift began before Laura could prepare herself. Pain exploded through her body, bones breaking, reforming, breaking again. Nothing like the smooth transformations she'd seen other wolves perform. This was violent, agonizing, her wolf forcing her way through 2 decades of damage. Laura screamed. "Hold on," Theron said desperately, lowering them both to the floor, cradling her against his chest as her body convulsed. "Just hold on." Her wolf's voice came again, no longer angry, anguished. "Sister, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you. I tried so hard, but she kept poisoning us, and I couldn't break through." "I know," Laura gasped aloud. "It's not your fault. It was never your fault." "Let me protect you now," her wolf pleaded. "Let me out. Let me be whole." Laura stopped fighting, stopped trying to control the transformation. She surrendered completely, letting her wolf take over. The shift accelerated. Her spine curved, reformed. Fur rippled across her skin, silver like moonlight, but threaded with an eerie green shimmer where the poison had left its permanent mark. Her face elongated, canines extending, her senses exploding into hypersensitivity. Through it all, Theron held her human form, his voice a steady anchor. "That's it. You're doing it. Just a little more." Then, finally, the transformation completed. Laura stood on 4 legs for the first time in her life. She was smaller than a pure-blood wolf. Her silver fur had that strange green shimmer woven through it like veins of corruption turned beautiful. When she looked at her reflection in the lunar stone's polished surface, her eyes flashed between gold and green, evidence of the poison that had tried to destroy her, but hadn't succeeded. She was imperfect, damaged, marked by years of abuse, and she was magnificent. Theron shifted beside her, his massive black wolf towering over her smaller frame. His amber eyes blazed with something that made the mate bond sing between them. "You're beautiful." His voice resonated through their mental link. "You're perfect. You're mine." Laura's wolf, their wolf, huffed in response, a sound that might have been laughter. "We're damaged." Theron's wolf moved closer, pressing his muzzle against hers. "You survived. That makes you the strongest wolf I've ever known." The mate bond snapped fully into place, not gently, but like lightning striking, fusing them together at a soul-deep level. Laura felt Theron's emotions flood through her, pride, possessiveness, fierce protectiveness, and underneath it all, a love so intense it nearly brought her to her knees. She felt his wolf recognize hers completely, imperfect and perfect, poisoned and powerful. His. "Mine too," she sent back through the bond. "Yes," he agreed. "Yours too. Always." They stood together beneath the lunar stone, 2 wolves, one black as midnight, one silver with green-touched corruption, bound by fate and choice, and 20 years of surviving what should have killed them both. Outside, the blood moon was rising, and Morgana was waiting. Chapter 9. They arrived at the old Ashenhurst Chapel as the blood moon reached its zenith, casting everything in shades of crimson and shadow. Laura approached in wolf form, Theron's massive black wolf beside her, their pack bond humming with shared purpose. Behind them came Commander Lyris and 24 elite guards, with Celestine leading them to the hidden entrance. The chapel had been abandoned for years, but tonight it blazed with dark magic. Blood runes carved into the stone floor glowed sickly green. A corrupted lunar stone, stolen from some forgotten pack sanctuary, pulsed at the circle's center. And surrounding it stood 24 Purist nobles in ceremonial robes, chanting in an ancient language that made Laura's wolf snarl with instinctive revulsion. Morgana stood at the circle's heart, arms raised, her voice rising above the others. She looked like some dark priestess from a nightmare, beautiful and terrible and utterly committed to her daughter's destruction. She didn't see them until it was too late. "Now," Theron commanded through the pack bond. The guards flooded into the chapel. The Purist nobles scattered, some trying to fight, others fleeing. But Theron's forces had them surrounded. Within minutes, the conspirators were subdued, bound with silver chains that suppressed their wolves. Morgana stood alone in the ritual circle, her eyes finding Laura's silver-green wolf form. "You should be dead," she breathed, her composure finally cracking into something wild. "Why won't you just die?" Laura shifted back to human form, standing naked in the blood moon's light, unashamed. The mate bond wrapped around her like armor, Theron's cloak appearing in his hands to drape over her shoulders. "Because I'm stronger than you ever let me believe," Laura said. Morgana's face twisted with rage. "You're nothing, an abomination, tainted blood masquerading as worthy." Her hands began moving in complex patterns. "If you won't die willingly, I'll rip that bond from you myself." "Mother, don't!" Celestine started forward, but Commander Lyris held her back. The spell erupted from Morgana's hands, dark magic, blood magic, forbidden power that screamed through the chapel like a living thing. It slammed into Laura, trying to tear the mate bond away, trying to rip her wolf free, trying to unmake everything she'd just become. But the bond held. Laura gasped as she felt the magic rebound, unable to break what she and Theron had completed. The spell had nowhere to go, except back to its caster. Morgana screamed as her own dark magic consumed her. Green-black flames erupted around her body, burning through her wolf spirit, devouring the power she'd wielded so carelessly. "Let her burn," Theron said coldly. "She chose this." Laura felt the temptation, felt how easy it would be to stand here and watch her mother reap what she'd sown, to let the woman who'd poisoned her, tortured her, tried to erase her very existence, finally face consequences. "Laura," Celestine whispered, "let her go. She chose this path. She earned this." Laura looked at her mother, writhing in agony, her wolf being burned away, the dark magic eating her alive. Looked at the woman who'd smiled while serving her poison every morning, who'd made her believe she was broken. Who'd ordered her assassination, who'd planned to sacrifice her in a ritual to benefit the daughter she actually loved, the woman who'd never been a mother at all. "No," Laura said. She stepped into the ritual circle, into the flames. The mate bond flared around her, Theron's power flowing through her, protecting her from the dark magic. She grabbed her mother's hands. "I won't become a monster to punish a monster," Laura said. She channeled the mate bond's power, pure and clean, into the corrupted spell. Silver light blazed through the chapel, driving back the darkness. The flames died. Morgana collapsed, gasping. Alive, but changed. Laura felt it through her touch. Her mother's wolf was gone, burned away completely by the rebounding spell. Morgana Ashenhurst, who'd prided herself on her pure bloodline, on her perfect wolf, was now human. "You saved me," Morgana whispered, staring up at Laura in disbelief. "I saved your life," Laura corrected. "Not you. There's a difference." She released her mother's hands and stepped back. "You'll live with what you've done. Every day. Human. Powerless. Everything you feared I was." She turned to Commander Lyris. "Arrest them all. Every Purist noble. Let them face justice for conspiracy, for assassination attempts, for forbidden magic." As the guards moved to comply, Laura looked at her mother one final time. "You'll be exiled, stripped of your titles, your lands, your power. You'll live the rest of your life as the thing you despised most." Laura's voice was steady, empty of emotion. "But you'll live, because I refuse to let you make me into what you are." Morgana's face crumpled. But Laura was already walking away, Celestine falling into step beside her, Theron's warm hand finding hers. Behind them, her mother wept. But Laura didn't look back. She was done looking back. Take a breath. Laura just walked away from her abuser with her head high. If that moment gave you chills, if you're rooting for survivors over their poisoners, hit subscribe, because this channel stands with people who choose healing over hatred. Comment where you're watching from and tell me, have you ever had to walk away from someone toxic? You're part of this family now. Let's finish Laura's story. Chapter 10. 3 months later, Laura stood in the same ceremony hall where her mother had torn her dress and let herself be crowned. The hall blazed with light, candles and moonlight mixing until everything seemed touched with silver. Every noble house in the territories had gathered, but this time they came to witness not a selection, but a coronation. Laura wore a gown of deep midnight blue, the same color as Theron's cloak that had saved her that first night. Silver embroidery traced wolf patterns across the fabric, not hiding what she was, but celebrating it. "Before we proceed," Laura said, her voice carrying across the assembled nobles, "I want you to see who I really am." She shifted. Her silver wolf emerged in the center of the hall, smaller than a pure blood, fur shimmering with that strange green luminescence where the poison had left its permanent mark. Her eyes flashed between gold and green as she turned slowly, letting everyone see. Letting them see her imperfection, her damage, her strength. Then she shifted back, standing before them in human form, unashamed. "I am wolf and human," she said. "I am poisoned and healed. I am imperfect and worthy." Her gaze swept the crowd. "And I am your Luna." The lunar stone behind her blazed with pure silver light, recognizing what Morgana had tried so hard to destroy. The nobles dropped to one knee, some willingly, others reluctantly, but all of them acknowledging what the moon itself had chosen. Theron placed the crown on her head, a circlet of silver set with moonstones that caught the light like captured stars. When she met his amber eyes, the mate bond hummed between them with fierce satisfaction. His, hers, theirs. The reforms came swiftly after. Bloodline purity laws abolished, the noble houses restructured based on merit rather than lineage. Half-blood wolves welcomed instead of hidden. Laura became the symbol of everything the old guard had feared, and everything the territories needed. The Purist nobles faced trial. Most were stripped of titles and lands, some exiled. The conspiracy that had poisoned Laura's entire life was dismantled piece by piece. And Morgana. 1 week before the coronation, Laura visited her mother's exile estate. A small manor in the remote northern mountains, comfortable but isolated. Morgana would live here as a human, powerless, for the rest of her days. They sat across from each other in a plain sitting room. Morgana looked smaller somehow without her wolf, diminished. "I did what I thought was right," Morgana said quietly. "No," Laura's voice was steady. "You did what you thought would benefit you. There's a difference. I hope someday you understand what you destroyed." "Do you hate me?" Laura considered the question, considered the woman who'd poisoned her for 20 years, who'd ordered her death, who'd tried to erase her existence. "No," she said finally. "I don't hate you. I don't feel anything for you at all anymore, and that's exactly what you deserve." She left without looking back. Celestine departed the palace 2 days after the coronation, not as a rival, but as Laura's appointed ambassador to the human territories. "I want to build bridges," Celestine had said, "the way our grandmother did." "The way you're doing?" The sisters embraced before she left. "Thank you," Laura whispered, "for choosing me." "Thank you for letting me," Celestine replied. The greatest gift came a month later, when Seraphine's research finally bore fruit. Laura's grandmother, her father's mother, had human family, relatives who'd grieved when she'd entered the wolf world and disappeared. Laura met them in a small human town, an elderly woman with kind eyes and her grandmother's smile. "She talked about you," the woman said, tears streaming down her face. "Before she died, said she had a granddaughter in the wolf territories she'd never meet, but I'm meeting you now." Laura found family she'd never known she had, found acceptance, found proof that her tainted blood was actually a bridge between worlds. That night, she and Theron ran as wolves through moonlit forests, her silver-green shimmer and his solid black, small and large, imperfect and perfect, poisoned and pure, but together, unstoppable. "You're happy," Theron sent through their bond. "I'm free," Laura corrected. "For the first time in my life, I'm free." They ran until dawn, two wolves who'd chosen unity over division, love over fear, strength over perfection. And the moon, ancient and knowing, blessed them both. The girl whose mother tore her dress had become the Luna Queen who tore down centuries of bloodline politics. The daughter who'd been poisoned had become the healer who'd saved them all, not despite her damage, because of it.